high-profile mass murder trial comes to an end.
You're holding your breath for 3 years and you can finally breathe.
Even in the pandemic, you know what? Justice prevails.
Relief right after the guilty verdict. Reaction pours in from family and friends of the Toronto van attack killer's many victims, as the judge notes that Alec Manassian has, quote, no remorse. Plus,
it is clear that reopening widely is not advisable at this time.
I think we're all just a little bit frustrated.
as stay-at-home orders are set to end next week in Toronto and Peel, there's a debate tonight over the speed at which those restrictions should be lifted. And
everyone has to be doing more at this point than at any point since COVID-19 has hit the province. You have to be more vigilant today.
Ontario will soon be deploying 100 new inspectors to make sure businesses across the province are following proper COVID-19 safety regulations. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. It was an emotional day for the survivors and families of victims of the 2018 Yonge Street van attack. Alec Manassian has been found guilty of all the charges against him. The 28-year-old admitted to carrying out the rampage that left 10 people dead and more than a dozen injured. But the trial hinged on whether he was criminally responsible. As Farah Morali reports in her ruling today, the judge says he was well aware of his actions and the destruction he would cause.
It's been nearly 3 years, but the images and the aftermath of the deadly attack are still fresh in so many minds.
Jin Hoon Kim, So Hee Chung.
One by one, the names of those who were killed that day were read aloud as victims and their families stood side by side outside the courthouse. Today, Alec Manassian, the man who deliberately drove a van down a Yonge Street sidewalk, killing 10 people and injuring 16 others, was found guilty.
It's like you're holding your breath for 3 years and you can finally breathe.
Today, relief from family members of those who died.
I don't really know how else to explain it. You got a chance to we get a chance to kind of continue a life, finding our new normal and kind of being and living that again.
At the heart of this case is not whether the accused actually committed the attack. He's long admitted to it, even saying he planned it out weeks in advance. What the judge had to decide was whether or not in that moment he understood that what he was doing was morally wrong.
The accused's lawyer tried to argue because of his autism spectrum disorder, he was incapable of that. The judge rejected that claim today, saying this was the exercise of a free will by a rational brain capable of choosing between right and wrong. He freely chose the option that was morally wrong, knowing what the consequences would be for himself and for everybody else.
I'm hoping that someday he'll be able to begin to understand what he did.
Catherine Riddell was hit that day while out for a walk. She was hospitalized for 2 months with a fractured spine, pelvis, and other injuries.
Hopefully one day I'll be able to shed this walker and be back to where I was before all this happened.
While the attack changed the lives of victims and their families, it's also left a lasting impact on the community.
The memories come back, the emotions come back. I think everyone right now is bracing themselves, at least as faith leader, we're bracing ourselves for many people to be talking about it and wanting and needing to share and kind of come back together and remember together.
Now, the case will be back in court on March 18th. It's expected that a date for a sentencing hearing will be set. As you can imagine, there will be many victim impact statements as part of that hearing. We're also hearing tonight that community members here in the Yonge Finch area are pushing to submit a community impact statement as well. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police were at an East End garbage dump once again today, continuing an investigation from last week. According to a police source with knowledge of the investigations, officers were searching Commissioner Street transfer station today looking for human remains. They were also there last week. That investigation is in connection to the death of 45-year-old Getty Ali Getty. He was fatally shot by Toronto police in a building near George Street and Dundas Street East just over a week ago. Police had come to the building while looking for a missing woman, 33-year-old Amanda Colleen, whose disappearance is now being treated as a homicide. As part of the investigation, detectives had been going through dumpsters outside the building before expanding their search. Last Wednesday, police said they discovered human remains, charging Orson York, a 59-year-old man, with indignity to a human body. Police have not yet identified those remains. Toronto and Peel are both recommending the province move their regions to the gray lockdown zone when stay-at-home orders expire on Monday. That is the most restrictive level in the province's color-coded system. And while it will allow for non-essential retail to reopen, most businesses will have to remain shut. Chris Glover has all the details.
Shuttered already for 100 days, today medical officers in both Toronto and Peel asked for 2 more weeks of lockdown.
By shouldering that burden, Toronto helped Ontario.
Your sacrifices have protected not only Peel, but residents across Ontario.
As the stay-at-home order is set to lift next week, they want the provincial government to move Toronto and Peel to grey lockdown, the most restrictive zone in the color-coded system.
So in a week, the number of cases screening positive for a variant has more than doubled.
Reopening too quickly risks erasing the gains that we've made, putting lives and well-being at risk.
And while this Mississauga infectious disease specialist agrees,
and I think this is the right thing to do things slowly, keep an eye on the numbers.
It's been more than 3 months of widespread closures already, some of the longest across all North America.
Tired of, I know it sounds trite, but no place to go. Like no rest, like there's no place to go.
I wish everything get back to normal as soon as possible, because we miss our loved ones.
Peel Region's Council unanimously voted last week to skip lockdown and go to the red zone like neighboring York and Halton regions, where indoor dining and salons can reopen.
Ultimately, it is a public health decision, not a political decision, and we have to respect the decision of public health.
Peel's medical officer also put to rest any notion that Mississauga, where case counts have been lower than Brampton, may see fewer restrictions.
You never know, maybe they'll change their minds at the province, although I doubt it. So we're waiting to hear what the announcement will be on Friday. I think we're all just a little bit frustrated and all a little bit disappointed.
Toronto's mayor is not disappointed. Toronto and Peel will remain locked up together.
Frankly, this consistency as between Peel and Toronto is desirable. I think it would have been even more desirable to have more consistency across a lot of places because you get people moving around a lot.
And anyone thinking of moving around, Dr. Lowe's got a message for you.
If you contract COVID in another jurisdiction outside of Peel, you will count as a Peel resident in our case counts, making it harder for all of us to move on.
Okay, so very clear recommendations from Toronto and Peel's medical officer of health, and the province tells me that the final decision will be made public on Friday, but important to keep in mind that the Premier and Ontario's medical officer of health have been clear that they intend to follow the recommendations from the local medical officers of health. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
As more businesses reopen, the Ontario government is again warning business owners to make sure they are following COVID-19 safety regulations. And in an effort to conduct more checks, it announced today it will be hiring 100 new inspectors to be fully trained and deployed by July 1st. Greg Ross has more.
My message is clear to every business. You know what you need to be doing. Step up.
And to make sure Ontario businesses are following COVID-19 safety regulations, the province is ramping up its enforcement.
On Monday, more than 100 new occupational health and safety inspectors started their training. They are learning the ropes now and will be in the field in the weeks ahead.
It's the next step in what Labour Minister McNaughton says has already been a busy year.
Since the start of this year, over 11,800 workplace inspections have been completed, and over 9,400 orders and 370 tickets have been issued.
That brings the total number of workplace inspections up to over 40,000 since the start of the pandemic. And in addition to all of the fines that have been handed out, the province says it has also shut down 69 businesses for non-compliance.
This should be about helping those companies get to compliance and not be a got you exercise.
Rocco Rossi is the president and CEO of the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. While he supports punishing those who are ignoring the guidelines, he says with many businesses having just come out of the lockdown or hoping to very soon, many owners are still not entirely clear on safety regulations.
There are many who are hearing one thing from public officers of health, other things from some public officials, whether in Barrie or in Mississauga, and certainly I don't think they should be penalized if there is confusion as opposed to bad actors.
While the labor minister says business owners should know the guidelines nearly a year into the pandemic, he says there will be a period of grace for small businesses.
We're here to support those small businesses who are transitioning to reopening or who have recently reopened. And we're there with an educational campaign and then doing follow-up inspections.
Many businesses in Toronto are hoping to open next week. McNaughton says the province is prepared to work with the city's public health officials to tackle hotspots they are currently seeing. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
The first shipment of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine arrived at Pearson Airport today. The province saying it will be distributed to those between the ages of 60 to 64. And a major development today regarding changes to guidelines for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Lorenda Redicott breaks it all down for us.
The first doses of AstraZeneca vaccine arrived today, but the ones staying in Ontario won't be headed to mass vaccination sites.
Moving forward, there's going to be a different pathway for delivering AstraZeneca into people's arms.
At least some of the shots will be given in pharmacies. Pharmacy students recently received training on doing inoculations, and the government has signed agreements with the Pharmacists Association allowing them to vaccinate. Many of the AstraZeneca shots will have to be done soon. Most expire in a month. AstraZeneca will be targeted for people aged 60 to 64. The National Advisory Committee on Vaccinations, or NACI, so far isn't recommending it for seniors. It's still not clear when the next groups of people will be eligible for their vaccines, like frontline essential workers, those from high-risk communities, or people with health conditions.
We're giving the public health units all of the information that they need right now to deliver the vaccines that we have right now. As we move forward with more quantities and different types, then they will get that information.
Today, frustration from other politicians.
So here we are, not even knowing, who's being prioritized in the second phase of the rollout. And we're literally on the cusp of that rollout.
This idea that we're all still guessing around when and how I'm going to get a vaccine, where I fit into the priority list is unacceptable.
This afternoon, Toronto officials said some older seniors, 80 plus, are already getting their vaccines at hospitals, but mainly people already going there for other appointments. Sunnybrook Hospital says it hopes to start vaccinating seniors next week. And late this afternoon, big news from the National Advisory Committee. It changed its guidelines for Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, saying the length of time before the second dose can be extended to 4 months.
All that does is make sure that more Ontario residents get access to the vaccine sooner. So for me, it would be a game changer.
That means the province's vaccination timeline will have to be updated. The provincial web portal still isn't set to be up and running until March 15th. And it's not clear when mass vaccination clinics in this city will be able to open. Lorenda Redicott, CBC News, Toronto.
There is still no word when the majority of seniors age 80 and up in Toronto will be eligible to get vaccinated. City officials say the reason for the slow pace is because Toronto hasn't received enough supply to vaccinate everyone in the highest priority groups. Our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley looks into that claim.
People aged 80 or older can get vaccinated right now in quite a few places in this province, including in Ontario's second and third largest public health units. That's here in York Region and here in Peel Region. Same goes for Windsor, London, and Waterloo, but not in Toronto. Why is Ontario's biggest city not there yet?
So we have a much larger task to perform in the context of getting through the healthcare workers and the other top priority people as set out by the province in their priority list.
Healthcare workers do account for the bulk of the top priority group. People over age 80 are also in what the province calls Phase 1 of its vaccination plan. According to data from Toronto Public Health, around 11% of the city's population is eligible to be vaccinated in the first phase. Across the province as a whole, the government estimates that 14% of Ontarians are in Phase 1. So those figures do not support Toronto's claim of having a disproportionate number of people in the priority groups, but there is something else to consider: whether the province has shipped an equitable supply of doses to Toronto.
There are no city-operated immunization clinics in operation as of present, and that is a direct result of not having vaccine available to us.
Toronto has received about 195,000 doses of vaccine. That's enough to give one dose to a little more than 6% of the city's population. Haldimand, Norfolk has received around 12,000 doses of vaccine. That's enough for one dose to nearly 11% of the people living there. In a statement, a health ministry official says future allocations will be more in line with the size of each health unit and will also take the priority group populations into account. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
When we come back, the development of a controversial highway loses speed.
Putting through something as a multi-lane highway changes, and I would say destroys, that what's left of that look and feel of rural Vaughan.
More on why some municipalities are no longer backing Highway 413 and how even the Ford government who proposed it are hitting the brakes after the break. The city of Vaughan is the latest municipality to withdraw support for a controversial highway. Highway 413 would run from York to Halton region, and it's being proposed by the province. But it's drawn criticism because it could cut through farm and greenbelt land. As Ali Chiasson reports, these towns are making it more difficult for the province to push it through.
There's a whole patchwork of municipalities that would host at least a stretch of Highway 413. Last week, Mississauga withdrew its support, saying it would be disastrous for the environment. Brampton and Caledon seem to be on the fence, preferring federal oversight of the environmental assessment and not just to take the province's word for it. And now the city of Vaughan is the latest to withdraw their support.
Putting through something as a multi-lane highway changes, and I would say destroys, that what's left of that look and feel of rural Vaughan.
Yesterday, Vaughan councillors were set to vote on getting federal oversight. Instead, after hearing deputations from concerned constituents, Councillor Tony Corella put forward a motion to withdraw support entirely, and it passed 5-4.
I think that the general understanding of the negative impact of this particular proposal built fairly slowly but steadily.
For Councillor Corella, it was about finding a way to make use of existing infrastructure instead of spending $6 billion on a new highway, like providing incentives for taking the 407 toll route.
They could subsidize those tolls for the next 50 years and probably not even come close to $6 billion.
Agreed?
Today at Queen's Park, House Leader Paul Calandra reiterated their reasoning for Highway 413, and there's still more consultation to be had.
This is a region of the province that has had tremendous population growth, so it's obviously something that we need to look into if we're to get people moving around. If it makes sense to build this piece of infrastructure, we will. If it doesn't, we won't.
Vaughan Mayor Maurizio Bevilacqua voted to stick to the plan against what his committee wanted.
He actually said we were flip-flopping.
And that committee vote still has to be ratified by Vaughan City Council next week. So will Vaughan officially slam the brakes on Highway 413? We'll have to wait and see. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Vaughan.
More record home prices were reported today here in Toronto. The average home price has hit a new milestone, over $1 million. $1,045,488 to be exact. That's according to February data from the Toronto Region Real Estate Board. Prices are up 15% over year, and home sales are up over 50%. You're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline. Partly cloudy tonight, currently 2 degrees downtown. Let's check in with meteorologist Nick Sternkovich. And Nick, the mild temperatures making it feel a bit like early spring today.
Hi, Kelda. Well, temperature certainly the story today. We hit 7 degrees, now that well above the seasonal mark. Unfortunately, it's not sticking around, but the sunshine is here to stay. Here's a look at your weather headlines heading through the next few days. Near seasonal temperatures as we head through tomorrow, so they are dropping. Lots of sunshine, though, in the forecast, and there is another warm-up on the way, and that'll come next week, so we've got something to look forward to there. This is how we started the day today. 2 degrees in the city of Toronto. By the time we hit the afternoon, up to highs of 7 degrees. Now, to put that in perspective, the average for this time of year, about 1.3, the average low, about minus 7.4. This is a look at what we saw today. 7.1 is a high, and the low of 0 came actually at midnight last night, and then it sort of climbed throughout the overnight period. So warm weather today. Didn't see the cloud cover I expected, though. The whole system was a little bit weaker than expected. That being said, some partly cloudy skies tonight, mostly to the southwest as we head through tomorrow morning. Maybe a little bit of cloud cover in the morning, but by the afternoon we're into sunshine. Sunshine sticks around through Friday, and a little bit of a mix of sun and cloud into Saturday as well. We've got couple competing, very weak systems here. We're not going to see precipitation, but again, we may see a little bit of cloud cover heading into the beginning of the weekend. Otherwise, lots in the way of sunshine. Forecast for tonight down in southwestern Ontario, temperatures at about -4, wind chills of about -8. By tomorrow, gets windy again. Gusts to about 50 kilometers per hour. Temperatures in Windsor of 2 degrees. A little cooler as you head toward the London area, and that with some flurries that are coming off of the lake there. However, as you get to the Golden Horse Horseshoe, we're looking at mild temperatures again, or at least around the seasonal mark. For tonight, down around -4 degrees, wind chills of about -9 as we head through tomorrow afternoon. We're looking at temperatures just sort of hovering around the 0 mark, so about a degree or two below the seasonal average. But again, it's an average, so we expect that. As we head through Friday, 0 degrees, pretty gusty winds again, up to about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. A bit more in the way of cloud cover on Saturday. Lots in the way of sunshine, though. In fact, no rainfall to speak of here all the way through till next Monday. And Monday actually kicks off at least a couple days of well above seasonal temperatures. Monday of 8 degrees, and we might even see a double digit in there toward the beginning of next week. Kelda.
I like the sound of that. Thanks so much, Nick.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
Finally tonight, a Whitehorse resident known for his joyous dancing videos got his first dose of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine this week. The city in Yukon is the first capital in Canada to open its vaccine clinics to people 18 and older. The dance instructor felt so grateful after he got the jab, he decided to celebrate the best way he knows how, with a traditional Punjabi Bhangra dance. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond will have your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and Chris Glover will have you covered tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.